teachers of Reddit, what is the worst thing you've seen a parent do to their child that either made you want to or did make you call Child Protective Services? Couple years back I was running a preschool classroom in a low-income area. Had a kid who would constantly come in visibly dirty. Usually always had a dirty diaper, was almost 5. So we had a theory that she never really got a bath or changed or anything. Changed her up before sending her home one day, and I had my assistant draw a star on her diaper. Sure enough, go to change her when she arrives the next morning, and there's a star on her diaper. She had been in the same soaked diaper for nearly 18 hours. Had a student beaten so badly he couldn't sit in his chair. Entire back was covered in lashes. Admin gets the mom to come to the school and the cops are there waiting for her. They arrest her on the spot while taking another child, an infant, out of her arms to do so. When they asked her why she did it, her response was, because he needed it. She was so warped she couldn't even come up with an excuse. So sad. Not a teacher. Father is though. A teacher in the school had 2 boys, both in high school. She had some mental issues and had to take a few weeks off. The older child came in smelling horrible a few days in a row, and a teacher pulled him aside and asked if everything was alright. He said, "And I poop you not." Mom hasn't been around to give me a bath. Like it wasn't a big deal at all. Kid is 16 and his mother gives him bath like you would a 3-year-old. When they brought his brother, 15, in to talk to him about his home life, he confirmed this. Not 4 hours later CPS entered the home and removed them. Teacher is still employed. Teacher is still employed. I'm sorry, WTF. Not a teacher, but I was playing with some kids one time, and one of them fell down because of the roots around this giant tree. She started crying immediately, but not because of the injury, but because her white shoes got scuffed. Her little brother hugged her really tight and kept saying he'd try to find a way to hide them when they got home so that mom didn't see them. The girl said she was going to get beaten up again. Told my mom. Mom called the police. Never saw the kids again. Had one particular year where we had a bunch of students who had terrible home lives. Roaches coming out of book bags, dirty clothes, etc. One parent-teacher conference, the parent was clearly on pills and kept talking about what a terrible child she had, but the kid wasn't bad at all. They just had low grades because they missed so much school that some of their house burned down and their brother was arrested for making child porn. Another set of parents came in that year with a toddler wearing only a diaper, and they were all really dirty, like they hadn't bathed in a week. The child always looked clean at school though, which made me think they cleaned up in the bathroom before school. Not a teacher, but I work in student support in a high school. We frequently put in child protection reports. The worst one was a 14-year-old girl living with her baby sister, mentally ill mum, and violent dad. Dad and mum get high on meth. Dad beats mum. Dad rapes girl. Dad gets girl pregnant and punches her in the stomach until the baby dies. Girl denies anything is happening at home because she thinks if she is removed, she can't protect her baby sister anymore. Dad ended up in jail. Special needs student had markings on both wrists. When placing his wrists together it was obvious they were being tied together. It ended up that his daycare was tying them together each day. Freshman came in smelling like cat urine, which is a sign of meth cooking, especially in a rural school district. I told the nurse. Nurse and principal pulled the student from class. Never saw her again. My friend's boyfriend grew up in a hoarder, housed 10 plus cats at any one time. Cat piss and offal literally everywhere from the kitchen stove to the bathrooms. The smell got into everything, and he grew up pretty isolated because of it. His parents weren't abusive, but they neglected him and his brother. So who knows? My friend is a special ed teacher for the really bad cases. She's trying to get out of it because it's basically killing her. A lot of the kids that are in her classes are there because of the horrible things that have been done to them. One pair of sisters, maybe 6 and 8, came from an Eastern European orphanage where they were molested. Luckily, they got adopted by an American couple, so they got to start a new life together. Then their new dad started molesting them. She calls CPS a lot. outside of school, but I once called 911 for an infant that was left in a hot car in the sun with all doors and windows closed and locked. You should have seen the cop yelling at the mother when she got back to her car. Not me, but my mom. This kid was acting up at school, mostly Kindergarten stuff, and when his parents found out, they would lock him in a closet and literally slide trays of food under a slot in the door. It was like the kid was in prison. You might think, whoa, severe timeout, but this kid missed school for 3 days because he was in the closet. It gets worse. He told his teachers why he was gone, so they called DCFS to handle the situation. The parents find out and buy a tarantula. You know where this is going. They let the tarantula bite the kid and send him off to school with a big ass spider bite on his hand. I saw him a couple weeks later and the nurse had wrapped it in gauze because of how bad it had gotten. One of my preschooler's parents sent him in the same socks over and over, and he had so much earwax and hung that it smelt. I told my boss and went out to buy him some socks. Since we were playing with water, I just acted like he accidentally got his socks wet and put another pair on him and sent them both home. You bet your bottom dollar he was wearing the same socks I just gave him the next day. Not me, but a close relative. First grader came in completely exhausted. When asked why, he detailed how his mother had taken him to work the night before in her car and how he had to sit in the front while she worked. I'm friends with some teachers. One family literally lived in a cave. They did periodic welfare checks, but the kids were fed, cleaned and clothed well enough, and they were sheltered, so that was that as I understand. The parents have never been found to be on drugs or anything. They were just so poor that they lived in a lucking cave. This is in rural Appalachia in the US, which even my husband, who does home health, always has at least one patient with dirt floors and half caved in roofs. Not a teacher, but I'm a camp counselor. A few years back we had a young girl get dropped off by her parents, and when they opened the door of their car to drop her off, smoke literally poured out. The parents were hotboxing their car at 8 AM dropping their 6-year-old daughter off at camp. She 100% got a contact high and CPS was called within the hour. I had a student come in one day with 4 empty kitty litter jugs tied around his neck. The big, gallon-sized jugs. You could tell he was nearly crying. I pulled him into my office and asked him what was going on. He had forgotten to change the cat's litter box one time. His parents thought this was an appropriate response. They made him wear them to school. He was 16. I took him down to the counselor's office and let them deal with those psychos.